Welcome to Read to Me, Matt Dunn. I'm Matt Dunn, and I'm going to read to you. We are reading The Color Out of Space, Part 6. Oh, this is by H.P. Lovecraft, Part 6. Commencing his descent of the dark stairs, Amy heard a thud below him. He even thought a scream had been suddenly choked off and recalled nervously the clammy vapor which had brushed by him in the frightful room above. What presence had his cry and entry started up? Halted by some vague fear, he heard still further sounds below. Indubitably, there was a sort of heavy dragging and a most detestably sticky noise as of some fiendish and unclean species of suction. With an associative sense goaded to feverish heights, he thought unaccountably of what he had seen upstairs. Good God! What eldritch dream world was this into which he had blundered? He dared move neither backward nor forward, but stood there trembling at the black curve of the boxed-in staircase. Every trifle of the scene burned itself into his brain. The sounds, the sense of dread expectancy, the darkness, the steepness of the narrow steps, and merciful heaven, the faint but unmistakable luminosity of all the woodwork in sight, steps, sides, exposed lathes and beams alike. So this guy's just fucking dead in his tracks, scared shitless to go back, scared shitless to go forward. There is darkness all around him, but yet it all still seems to glow. I would just be like, I was playing with my dogs earlier. I got dog hair all over my face. I would just be scared, shitless. It'd be like a fucking crazy day. Then there burst forth a frantic whinny from Amy's horse outside, followed at once by a clatter which told of a frenzied runaway. Excuse me. In another moment, horse and buggy had gone beyond earshot, leaving the frightened man in the dark stairs to guess what had sent them. But that was not all. There had been another sound. There had been another sound out there. A sort of liquid splash. Water. It must have been the well. He had left Hero untied near it, and a buggy wheel must have brushed the coping and knocked in a stone. And still the pale phosphorescence glowed in that detestably ancient woodwork. God, how old the house was. Most of it built before 1670, and the gambrel roof not later than 1730. About a couple hundred years. A feeble scratching on the floor downstairs now sounded distinctly, and Amy's grip tightened on a heavy stick he had picked up in the attic for some purpose. Slowly nerving himself, he finished his descent and walked boldly toward the kitchen. But he did not complete the walk, because what he sought was no longer there. It had come to meet him, and it was still alive after a fashion. Whether it had crawled or whether it had been dragged by any external force, Amy could not say, but the death had been at it. Everything had happened at the last half hour, but Everything had happened in the last half hour, but collapsed, graying, and disintegration were already far advanced. There was a horrible brittleness and dry There was a horrible brittleness, and dry fragments were scaling off. Amy could not touch it, but looked horrifiedly into the distorted parody that had been a face. What? Okay, so this is him talking, I guess. What was it, Nene? What was it? He whispered. And the cleft... He's talking to this thing. This gray, brittle, drying fucking thing. What was it, Nene? What was it? He whispered. And the cleft, bulging lips were just able to crackle out a final answer. Nothing. Nothing. The color. It burns. Cold and wet, but it burns. It lived in the well. I seen it, a kind of smoke. Just like the flowers last spring. The well shone at night. Thad and Marnie and Zenas, everything alive, sucking the life out of everything. In that stone. It must come in that stone. Pizened the whole place. Don't know what it wants. That round thing them men from the college dug out of the stone. They smashed it. It was the same color. Just the same like the flowers and plants. Must have been more of 'em. Seeds, they growed. It's seen it the first time this week. Must have gone strong on Zenas. He was a big boy full of life. It beats down your mind and then gets you, burns you up in the well water. You was right about that. Evil water. Zenas never come back from the well. Can't get away. Draws you. You know summat's coming. But 'tain't no use. I seen it time and again. Zenas was took. Where's Nabby? Amy? My head's no good. Don't know how long sucked I fed her. I'll get her if we ain't careful. It'll get her if we ain't careful. Just a color. Her face is getting to have that color sometimes toward night, and it burns and sucks, and it comes from some place where things ain't as they are is here. One of them professors said so. He was right. Look out, Amy, and it'll do something more. Suck the life out. But that was all. That which spoke could speak no more because it had completely caved in. Amy laid a red checkered tablecloth over what was left and reeled out the back door into the fields. He climbed the slope to the 10-acre pasture and stumbled home by the north road and the woods. He could not pass that well from which his horse had run away. He had looked at it through the window and had seen that no stone was missing from the rim. Then the lurchy buggy had not dislodged anything after all. The splash had been something else, something which went into the well after it had done with poor Nene. When Amy reached his house, the horse and buggy had arrived before him and thrown his wife into fits of anxiety. Reassuring her without explanation, he set out at once for Arkham and notified the authorities that the Gardner family was no more. He indulged in no details, but merely told of the deaths of Nene and Nabby. that of Thaddeus being already known, and mentioned that the cause seemed to be the same strange ailment which had killed the livestock. He also stated that Merwin and Zenas had disappeared. There are considerable questioning at the police station, and in the end, Amy was compelled to take 3 officers to the Gardner farm, together with the coroner, the medical examiner, and the veterinary who had treated the diseased animals. He went much against his will, for the afternoon was advancing, and he feared the fall of night over that accursed place, but it was some comfort to have so many people with him. The 6 men drove out in a Democrat wagon, following Amy's buggy, and arrived at the pest-ridden farmhouse about 4 o'clock. Used as the officers were to gruesome experiences, not one remained unmoved at what was found in the attic and under the red checkered tablecloth on the floor below. The whole aspect of the farm, with its gray desolation, was terrible enough, but those 2 crumbling objects were beyond all bounds. No one could look long at them, and even the medical examiner admitted that there was very little to examine. Specimens could be analyzed, of course, so he busied himself into obtaining them. And here it develops that a very puzzling aftermath occurred at the college laboratory, where the 2 vials of dust were finally taken. The 2 vials of dust mentioned before. Wow. Full circle. Under the spectroscope, both samples were given off an unknown spectrum in which many of the baffling bands were precisely like those which the strange meteor had yielded in the previous year. The property of emitting this spectrum vanished in a month, the dust thereafter consisting mainly of alkaline phosphates and carbonates. Carbonamida, carbidarbos. Amy would not have told the men about the well if he had thought they meant to do anything then and there. It was getting towards sunset, and he was anxious to be away, but he could not help glancing nervously at the stony curb by the great sweep, and when a detective questioned him, he admitted that Nene had feared something down there. So much so that he had never even thought of searching it for Merwin or Zenas. After that, nothing would do but that they empty and explore the well immediately. So Amy had to wait, trembling, while pail after pail of rank water was hauled up and splashed on the soaking ground outside. The men sniffed in disgust at the fluid, and toward the last held their noses against the fodder they were uncovering. It was not so long a job as they had feared it would be, since the water was phenomenally low. There is no need to speak too exactly of what they found. Merwin and Zenas, that's a fucking weird ass name. Merwin and Zenas were both there in part, though the vestiges were mainly skeletal. There were also a small deer and a large dog in about the same state, and a number of bones of smaller animals. The ooze and slime at the bottom seemed inexplicably porous and bubbling, and a man who descended on handholds with a long pole found that he could sink the wooden shaft to any depth in the mud of the floor without meeting any solid obstruction. Twilight had now fallen, and lanterns were brought from the house. Then, when it was seen that nothing further could be gained from the well, everyone went indoors and conferred in the ancient sitting room, while the intermittent light of the spectral half-moon played wanly on the gray desolation outside. The men were frankly nonplussed by the entire case, and could find no convincing common element to link the strange vegetable conditions, the unknown disease of the livestock and humans, and the unaccountable deaths of Merwin and Zenas in the tainted well. They had heard the common country talk, it is true, but could not believe that anything contrary to natural law had occurred. No doubt the meteor had poisoned the soil, but the illness of persons and animals who had eaten nothing grown in that soil, but the illness of persons and animals who had eaten nothing. Oh, did I just fucking... Oh my goodness, this is what happens when you do things and you stupid things. No doubt the meteor had poisoned the soil, but the illness of persons and animals who had eaten nothing grown in that soil was another matter. Was it the well water? Very possible. It might be a good idea to analyze it, but what peculiar madness could have made both boys jump into the well? Their deeds were so familiar, similar. Their deeds were so similar, and the fragments shewed that they both had suffered from the gray, brittle death. Why was everything so gray and brittle? Why was everything so gray and brittle? Ooh. What a mystery. What a mystery. This is terrible. This is scary. This is frightening. What if this was in your place? You have no control. So, if you want me to keep reading, please check out some more of my videos. Like, subscribe, and comment down below, and we'll have a good time. Thanks.